What are some signs that you are being manipulated? Everything is always your fault. When you catch them in a lie and you know they've lied, but they still don't admit they've lied. Manipulators often induce uncomfortable, negative feelings such as fear, guilt, or shame to get you to do what they want. Pay attention to the feelings you get around other people. Thinking to yourself, no, she wouldn't be doing this on purpose to me one too many times. Usually you don't really realize it. When other people start telling you there's a problem, that's when you finally realize. That's what it took for me. When you look back later, you can finally see what everyone else saw. Reading this thread and replies and thinking, oh, is probably not a good sign. Anybody who forcefully attempts to assert their trustworthiness isn't. When you do what people want you to do, but they won't do what you want them to do. You're being manipulated when the essential message is, be reasonable and do things my way. A big red flag is that you feel utterly miserable after spending time with them. A much bigger red flag is that you desperately want to spend time with them again. Toxic relationships are fiercely addictive. More than any substance I have ever tried. If a person makes you absolutely miserable, and you feel like you can't live without them, you're in serious trouble. Only some very good friends, and if possible a therapist, can get you out of that. They use the threat of leaving a relationship to get their way. Edit. Clarifying, because several people have made good points about legitimate boundaries. I am referring to frequent threats to end the relationship over wants instead of needs, or threats instead of communication or compromise. I would absolutely differentiate these from an ultimatum and consider them manipulation. 1. The feeling of walking on eggshells. 2. The sick feeling in your stomach when you think they're mad at you about something. 3. You no longer have friends. 4. You have issues with family. 5. Nothing about your life is of your choosing. 6. You filter everything you say to avoid fights. 7. Suppressing your opinions. 8. Feeling like you're living someone else's life. 9. Constantly complimenting the person. 10. Constantly reassuring the person. 11. Always putting their feelings before yours. I could keep going, but I'm sure you get the picture. You're questioning yourself. The term gaslighting is often used to identify manipulation that gets people to question themselves, their reality, memory, or thoughts. A manipulative person might twist what you say and make it about them. Hijack the conversation or make you feel like you've done something wrong when you're not quite sure you have. If someone is discouraging you from talking to or hanging out with your friends and family, when you give and give and give and they keep taking without giving back, I'll probably get downvoted for this, but if someone is truly good at manipulation, there aren't signs you don't notice. If they do something that hurt you and you end up apologizing instead, or if you tell a person that you're uncomfortable with, say, certain types of jokes, but they keep telling you that you're just too sensitive. Basically, if they make you feel bad for their actions, at some point you stopped doubting them and started doubting yourself. That's a sign you've been gaslighted. For me, it was being accused of being overly sensitive. Turns out it's completely reasonable to be offended by offensive things. Some signs that I know of because research are: if you defend yourself against the manipulator, but then they play innocent and make you feel guilty, and making themselves feel like the victim. If they keep you from your friends, make you drop connections with others. Gaslighting. Choosing certain things for you, i.e. food, clothing, just what they want, and stuff you might not like. Making you stay home instead of going out. And there are tons of more. But those are what I decided to list because I'm lazy. Who said anything about being manipulated? Aggressiveness, anger, conversation steering at the very beginning of a discussion that they don't want to have. The conversation will never occur. There is always something that stops or diverts it. Endlessly. I'm sorry I acted that way. When you call them out for doing something hurtful and they say, yeah, I'm a piece of then, or if you want to believe I did that. The silent treatment. You constant being given the feeling you are doing something wrong. Behavior towards others painfully different than behavior towards you. Keeping you from family and friends. Calling you wherever you are for control. Change treatment of you without giving reason. It's too good to be true. Don't feel like you can trust yourself to know what's real or not. You don't know if you can trust your own memory. Always feel on edge around them even though nothing's happening. Something bad could happen at any moment even when things are normal. They make a lot of situations about themselves. Or say things, how do you think XXXX makes me feel? Comma. When you don't want to talk or when you have something going on. Being accused of behavior that was originally exhibited by the accusing party. Simple version is, say a friend of yours is being extremely hostile. You respond in a frustrated manner wherein out of context you wouldn't be viewed in a good light. They then go about telling mutual acquaintances that you are hostile. Every time you say something, they make you feel like it's your fault or like you're the villain. Making you question your judgment and own memories. Manipulators are extremely jealous and needy, usually narcissist type. They will start small by getting you to do little favors for them, then they get angry if you don't do everything they ask. And a lot of manipulative will start fights and argue for no reason. Just endless fights. About who is right. When you feel like you're crazy and feel guilty for doing things that aren't bad, don't harm anyone but off the person gaslighting you. Red flag 1. Important information is missing or needs drug out into the light, kicking and screaming. There is a reason they don't want you to have it. If someone tries to tell you that you can't leave them because you're all they have. Red flag 100% of the time. Apologies without change. I once read. Verbatim. Apologies without change are manipulation. NA. When a person starts making you question your sanity and you feel confused a lot. When your behavior around that person is entirely narrowed down to things that won't upset that person. Because they have trained you with the constant threat of their bad emotions. When you share your feelings with someone and they turn it into something about them. To make you feel guilty about sharing in the first place. Leaving every interaction feeling like you compromised. You were made to feel at fault. Like you need to make something up to the other person even if it was a blatant issue with them. I got upset at my ex for staying up late and getting absolutely blasted drunk with my friend, who was an alcoholic, and I felt very insecure about if they liked each other because it was such a weird dynamic for them to do this behind my back. I brought up that I felt disrespected because I was woken up at 3 AM on a work night by the two of them laughing and then her throwing up in my living room. I knew she had a problem. But when I brought it up with him, he packed up all his stuff, told me I was awful, and made me apologize and beg for forgiveness. When you have to keep assuring someone that you are not manipulating them. Manipulators always accuse others of being manipulative. Bad gut feeling. Our bodies often know before we do. Knowing what was said or done. Especially if it was hurtful or negative towards you. But constantly being told that's not what happened and you're crazy, then they tell you what happened. Gaslighting over time really does make you feel crazy. Once you're away from that person and cut them off and the fog lifts. If you find yourself apologizing for things the other person should be apologizing for. Constantly justifying bad behavior for them in your mind. Them making you feel bad. Then don't acknowledge it. And act like it's no big deal. Provide no assurance. Always wondering if you're the problem even when you know the other person is wrong. You always come last. You begin to question yourself where you wouldn't have previously. You feel like you're always doing something wrong. Always having to watch your words, walking on eggshells with that person. You start feeling like you're losing your mind. They tell you or ask you something extremely personal early on in the relationship that crosses a major boundary. This is to test your openness and willingness to do things. Edit. Source. Unfortunate experience. You feel uncomfortable, but can't pinpoint why exactly. Alternatively, you can figure out the problem, but talking about it with the manipulator doesn't resolve anything. When the person in question has an answer for everything. When you're always the one to save the day, but no one saves your day. When you are suspicious or feel like you must walk on eggshells. When you're afraid to ask questions. When you feel like asserting yourself isn't worth the fight. When on the surface you think something is good for you, but inside you're having lots of turmoil about things. When confrontations always return to the same subject. When the other party never wants to be in a position to answer questions. When the answer that should be there isn't there. When nothing's ever clear. When things don't add up. Time after time. When you've had enough, but the other person makes you feel obligated. When the other person always finds a use for you and butters you up. When you've saved the ass of others one too many times and you're underappreciated for it. When the past repeats itself. When you're afraid to say no. When you're always told no. I could go on forever with these. I've been manipulated a lot in my past and have finally learned from it. When someone weaponizes their insecurity, whether it's honest or not, it can be manipulation. For example, if you try to talk someone about wanting any kind of change, no matter how minor, and they start the "I'm the worst person in the world. I should just go die in a hole. Be better off without me." And you end up having to comfort them. And somehow your own needs never get addressed. It's always your fault. They are always the victim. When you start apologizing for Aussie existing. X. Sorry I talk so much, sorry I'm annoying, sorry if I'm bothering you. Not so much gaslight why all the time, but manipulated to devalue yourself. The world's harsh enough. If you start questioning your own feelings, you are being manipulated. You are discouraged from seeking out other views, especially if they demonize the other sources. When you don't feel comfortable, you feel pressured. We're like a family here. Phrases like "don't you trust me?" "Gonna get buried," but thinking it's okay. They had a rough upbringing. They can't help it. Any entity that positions itself as being above criticism is always trying to manipulate you. When claimed fact slowly doesn't match with the reality. Asking if you are being manipulated. SRS. I thought you loved me. You were my brother Anakin. When your so makes you feel guilty for having fun without them. You clearly remember. And may even have written proof that something was said. Or a rule that specified one thing in particular. But are being told that it was never that. And they are being either very aggressive about it. Or flippant and nonchalant. They do something bad and apologize. But then end up doing the bad thing again. They won't let you hang out with your friends or relatives. But you have to be with them when they hang out with theirs. They make everything you do or say sound really small or petty. Or not a big deal. When a wife is being an arsehole saying if you don't buy her something expensive she will get another man. That's it. While talking to you, either giving you information or asking you something, they will probably touch your arm or lean in closer. Establishing physical contact. Eye contact increases the chances of the person accepting the information. Body language is something we all react to without knowing it. A person in an office chair will have more power than someone in a stationary chair because they can more easily change how they are sitting. Also, asking two questions, one after the other. You are most likely to answer only one of the questions so the person will be able to keep directing the conversation based on your answer. But I've been watching tons of police interrogation videos lately so I could go on. Every time she doesn't get what she wants she says I'm gonna kill myself. If you find yourself sharing identical opinions with poorly educated, Unqualified nut jobs who ignore global highly educated experts and a myriad of provable facts in lieu of YouTube videos, opinions and niche websites. Then I'm afraid you've just been manipulated to the max. When my dog acts like he needs to pee right now and I get up to let him out, only to learn he just wants a cookie. You clicked on this. I was just making sure, okay.